Now, it's hard to believe that 50 years ago, when Asians were being forced to flee Uganda, Leicester City Council placed an advert in a Ugandan newspaper telling them not to come to Leicester.
Well, they did. And when they arrived, many faced verbal and physical abuse. Despite not being made to feel welcome, they thrived and they made a valuable contribution to the city, as Rajiv Popat reports.
In 1972, before the expulsion of Asians from Uganda, Leicester was very different to the multicultural city it is today. There were very few people from an ethnic background. When President Idi Amin told Asians to leave, the council placed an advert in a Ugandan newspaper telling them they were not welcome.
We are not able to help them at all, of course, as local authority. Obviously, they are finding their own accommodation somewhere, probably causing overcrowding, but this is entirely up to them. We have nothing at all that we can offer to them.
There's too many people coming to Leicester. I mean, we're having them come all the time, every day. And I think it's causing a bit of ill feeling.
Nisha Raichura remembers comments like that all too well. She was just 9 when she left Uganda with her family. During a visit to an exhibition about the expulsion at Leicester's Curve Theatre, she told me the reception she received from local people was like the weather, cold and miserable.
Wherever we walked, there were people I could see who were just pointing us back onto where the planes were, onto where the airports were. I was not expecting to be told to go back home. What home?
How did that feel, being told to go back to where you came from?
It was an utter thought of rejection, you know. We had nowhere to go, we didn't have a home. Our life was just saved when we got onto that plane, but go back to that. Go back to where our necks are going to be cut off. Is that what they wanted?
Atul Patni is a jeweller on the Golden Mile. He was just 8 when he came to this country. His parents were keen for him to start school as soon as possible. He describes that period as dark and depressing.
They will, physically attack you, during playtime, kick you, things like that. Just generally punch you or hit you on the back of the head, make you fall down and then kick you again and then carry on with the name calling. The kids who were my age were actually taught by their parents to do all this to us, saying that we're not allowed, we don't belong in this country.
In this country, in 15 or 20 years' time, the black man will have the whip hand over the white man.
Just a few years earlier, Enoch Powell had made his Rivers of Blood speech. The arrival of Asians came against a backdrop of rising racial tensions in Britain, but concerns locally and nationally that Asians would be a burden on the state proved to be unfounded.
They didn't ask for handouts. They went out and looked for jobs, any kind of jobs they can get, night, day, whatever. They wanted to earn money. They didn't want any handout from the government.
Although Leicester City Council did its best to stop Asians coming to the city, they came in large numbers. They went on to regenerate areas like Belgrave, which now hosts the biggest Diwali celebrations outside of India. But they've also contributed massively to the local economy. The current city mayor described the views of those in power at the time as ridiculous.
If you look across every aspect of the life of the city, the spiritual life, the social life, recreational life, the sporting life, and of course the political life of the city, and of course particularly the business life of the city, all have been enormously enriched by those who chose to make their homes here 50 years ago. And, well, frankly, we're very grateful.
Pratibhaben Kataria and her husband Hiralal came to Leicester in 1970. When the exodus from Uganda started 2 years later, 40 of her relatives who had fled the country asked to stay with them. They agreed. It was a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom in Belgrave.
Nowadays, today's time, we got 3-bedroom and 3-bathroom toilet. And still we are saying, and that time nobody say anything.
There were a lot of children in the house, and when Mrs. Kataria said it was bedtime, she meant it.
Believe me or not, 8 o'clock, sharp 8 o'clock night, and I says, come on, everybody upstairs, please. And when I say 1, 2, 3, I want everybody upstairs. And that time, children, they really obey us.
A few days after the relatives moved in, a neighbour complained to the council and mistakenly told them illegal immigrants were living there. Council officials turned up the next day.
They were surprised, and they later on they said the thank you, and they sent the letter also to us. That Hiralal and Pratibha Kataria, we are very thankful that you gave the place for this many people in your house.
The neighbour and Mrs. Kataria went on to become close friends. And 50 years on, a community that was once shunned by council bosses is thriving. Uganda's loss, Britain's gain. Rajiv Popat, ITV News.